Hey everybody, welcome back to JT Channel, and this is it, the very first episode of Saturday of the Dead. As you can see, a fun little setup here. It won't be like this all the time because these are my daughter's toys, therefore I may have to switch them in and out, but I'll try to keep these things going. So if you don't know already, basically I'm starting a new schedule this week so that every Saturday there will be a video. Starting with Saturday of the Dead today, next week MAW, the following week Retro Wrestling Rewind, and then we reset back to Saturday of the Dead. And for the very first episode, I was going to try and review a movie, but I figured it's the first episode, so I'm going to tell you guys how I got into horror. And then basically, I'll try to give you guys an idea of what's coming on each episode, so you know what to look forward to in 3 weeks. So, without further ado, this is Saturday of the Dead.
Get real. You're not even scary. You're not even scary.
This first episode is going to center around how I got into horror. And as you can see, I'm wearing an Annabelle t-shirt because, well, it's a horror show, and this is just kind of show how far I've come with horror. Because it didn't always start out easily. A lot of people are like, oh, my first horror movie was XYZ. But for me, it's a little bit different. It wasn't just a first horror movie, because my first horror movie, from what I can remember, was The Exorcist. And I probably watched this in 1999, maybe 2000. So I was 9 years old in 2000. For reference, I was born in 1991. So I'm 35 years old now. And for about 20 years, I've told the same story. That I'm pretty sure when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, so anywhere between 1999 and 2001, I watched The Exorcist for the first time as a cat joins us. And it scared me half to death. Because of course it did. Because I was so young. And I didn't swear off horror movies right away, but I had a hard time figuring out if I was actually going to be able to enjoy horror. A couple of years later, my mom is with some guy, piece of crap, don't want to talk about him any more than I have to, but he's a big horror fan. I do have to give him one iota of credit, because not only is he the reason I'm into horror, but he's also the reason I'm into science fiction. Another conversation for another day, maybe not on the channel. But he was watching a horror movie. I'll tell you which one it is in just a second. I need to ask him a question, or he called me into the room, whichever happened. I walk in, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm staring at the TV. I'm just staring at this television. And he said, it's a scary movie. Are you sure? And I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, you made your own decision. So... and that's fair, you know. I walked in, I decided I wanted to watch it. It was a Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Instantly, I was into it. I think I started watching it with him about the point that the guy that's in a wheelchair, I'm so sorry, I should have looked up all these names and stuff, made notes. I decided to go off memory. But he's a wizard in his dream trying to fight Freddy, and you know, I'm a great wizard, I am a great magician. But, of course, I wanted to watch the whole movie from the beginning, so we did, and I was immediately enamored with the movie, with the character, the CGI, the effects, the kills, blah, 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 blah. You go on and on and on. I fell in love with horror at that moment. I was like, this is scary movies? This is what horror is? Of course, those movies weren't. By the time 3 came around, they weren't inherently terrifying, but I knew it was a horror movie. He let me know there were more. It was the 3rd one in the franchise. And I was like, cool, awesome, fantastic. So I went out and watched all of them, of course, and instantly became a huge Nightmare fan. Freddy was my guy. When Freddy vs. Jason came out, I went in with a little Freddy mask and was like, oh, you know, huge Nightmare fan. And that was really the starting point for me. I don't want to count The Exorcist just because it put me off of horror for at least 4 years, maybe 5, at max / minimum. But that's just the origins, right? And over, let's say that was 2006. That means it's been 20 years since I first looked at a horror movie and went, I love this shit. But things have evolved just as horror has evolved. even from the 70s, 80s. And I don't need to get into that. I'm not here to tell you the history of horror. I'm here to tell you about my history. So we're talking 2006 to 2012, right? This is a gap, 6 year, not gap, but a 6 year period where I am just consuming horror. I'm consuming the Nightmare movies, the Friday the 13th movies, the Halloween movies, other classic stuff. But there's a couple of things about horror that I'm starting to realize that I like and that I don't like. And bear with me before you comment and call me names in the comments. But at first, I'm not a big fan of two things: too much gore and too much nudity or sex. Now, it's not because I'm gay. I didn't say boobs. I said nudity. Any nudity, if there was too much of it, I felt like it took me out of the movie. If there's a 6.5 minute sex scene, I felt like that 6.5 minutes could have been better served something with the characters, something with the horror, jump scares, even more gore, which again I wasn't really a fan of, but those two things always took me out. There was too much of either. So that kind of dwindled down the horror movies I would watch or enjoy for obvious reasons. A sex scene that goes on for 2 seconds, someone flashing a body part, I can handle that. A little bit of gore, I can handle that. This is back then. We're going to, again, bear with me. So then in 2010, I realized what my favorite thing about horror movies is, and it's suspense and jump scares. And I know that sounds cheap, but I'm a big fan of cheap jump scares. Actually, my favorite thing in horror is the anti-jump scare, the fake out. Like when someone's looking into a mirror and they open it and they fiddle around for just a little too long and the music gets suspenseful and then they close the mirror and there's nothing there. And then they get jump scared. The little fake out jump scare followed by the actual. I love that stuff. I don't know why. I love the rush of it, I suppose. And then the edge of your seat thrills, whether there's music or no music. I don't mind musical stings. I don't mind little dun, 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 crazy music with little background hums. The reason I say 2010 is because the movie that made me realize that was Insidious. Now, I know Insidious has a weird reputation. Like, it's pretty widely enjoyed, but I know people who didn't like it very much. They thought the whole thing with the further was a little too much. But I feel like that's relatively believable to a certain extent. Like, people have out-of-body experiences when they're asleep, right? Where you can watch yourself sleeping. And I think that they just decided to take that concept and give it a name, give it a story, give it an origin, and then be like, oh, by the way, there's demons that look for bodies while you're traveling. All fine. I love the suspense in that movie. Me being such a big sci-fi fan, I love this idea that if you travel too far, something can take your body over, but you can still fight it. The jump scare gets me every time. It is 2026. That movie is 16 years old. When I stop this video, if I decide to go watch Insidious, it would get me again. If you know, you know. If you don't know, there's a certain jump scare where one of the characters is talking and then you hear a noise. It's like I don't even know. It's like a little critter noise almost, or I don't know. It's hard to explain. But then the little red-faced demon that we all call Darth Maul for obvious reasons shows up, and he doesn't even pop up. He just shows up. But the way it's executed, and I think there's a musical sting, it gets me every time. It's actually one of the reasons my dad, to give him a quick shout out, likes Halloween so much to this day. That movie's about to be 50 years old, I think, and he said there's a jump scare in it that gets him every single time he watches it. So a movie that's 50 years old still scaring you, still getting you with a jump scare. Just hit it here, Brooklyn. Sorry, I'm trying to help my daughter out here. That's pretty impressive, right? It's really impressive because you should be able, after seeing a movie so many times, to be like, I know what's coming, it can't get me. So in 2010, I realized that. In 2012, I realized that there's such a thing as too much. And I see it. And Brooklyn, no, I see. Stop, please, stop. Sorry. I have to be a dad in the middle of these videos. And the way I'm shooting this, I can't edit it out. But, that's my daughter. Anyway, in 2012, I realized that there are some things I still couldn't handle at that point. Because I was dating a girl who believed kind of in exposure therapy, where if you're scared of something, just be around it for a little bit and force yourself to get through it. Nope, don't go back there. And I was still afraid of movies that involved exorcisms at all. Brooklyn, please. And what she ended up doing was take me to go see The Devil Inside. Now, some of you are already laughing in the comments. I know. Trust me, that movie gets panned like it's going out of business. Like panic. Remember, this is 14 years ago. I was a different person than I am now. It was so bad. My dad and my stepmom picked on me because they said I counted how many people did this, but I just threw out a number. Like a dozen people left the theater after a certain scene. I can't talk about it on YouTube, so use your imagination, or if you've seen the movie, I'm sure you can figure out what scene I'm talking about. It's a scene where the guy who's possessed says, he said thanks. I'm just going to leave it there. But it scared the crap out of me. It really did. So I swore off exorcism movies for the longest time. And that kind of helped me streamline what I did enjoy. Again, I like jump scare movies. And at that point, 2012, that's the metric I use, 2006, 2012. If we go 2012 all the way to 2022, if we use a little 10-year scale now, this is where I really started to focus on what horror I liked. I knew that I liked jump scares. I knew that I liked suspense. I liked being scared. But I couldn't really handle exorcism. I can handle demons. I can handle demons in horror movies, but someone getting exorcised, for some reason, those movies always got to me. I even fell asleep watching The Exorcism of Emily Rose, I think. I was invited over to a house, same girl, actually, and her family was like, oh, let's have family movie night. And I was so scared because it was an exorcism movie and nobody listened to me. I went to sleep. They thought I was being disrespectful. I was just trying to be able to sleep for the night. But between that 10-year period, I saw all the Insidious movies and everything. But the big thing I want to talk about, and I don't remember exactly when this came out, so I apologize. Again, I should have just looked it up. But I went and I saw The Conjuring. Those movies are they're so good to me. I don't think any of them are bad. I think some people think the Nun spin-offs are a little hokey. That's your prerogative. That's your decision. The Conjuring kind of changed my whole perception of horror because while it didn't deal with exorcisms, it also kind of did. It's so hard to explain. But there was something about it that I liked. And then this came along. Annabelle came along. I saw Annabelle in theaters. I don't know if I saw the Conjuring movie, the first one, in theaters, but I saw Annabelle in theaters. And I loved it so much that to this day I want an Annabelle doll. That one of these, not the actual real life Raggedy Ann doll. I just want a movie version of the Annabelle doll. And I very much thoroughly enjoyed the atmosphere of those movies, the couple of jump scares, and again, the Annabelle doll itself, to the point where Annabelle Creation is probably among my top 3 favorite horror movies of all time. And again, I know people are going to be like, oh, can you dare? What about this? I don't care about other movies. I care about my personal decisions. And my personal decision is that Annabelle Creation is really good. Now, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to shelve that for now because future episodes of this may include like my top 20 horror movies or ranking The Conjuring, ranking Nightmare on Elm Street. That is going to be a future episode. So keep that in mind. I actually have that on my phone, the Nightmare on Elm Street ranking. It's going to surprise you. Someday when I do that episode, it's going to surprise you, I promise. But the Conjuring movies made me realize that maybe exorcisms and stuff like that, demons, possession, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I actually enjoyed it. And again, I actually really do. I haven't seen the most recent Conjuring, the 4th one I think it's called, or I think it is, The Last Rites. But I like all those movies. Up until 2022, roughly, maybe 2023, there were still the two things I mentioned earlier in this video, I still couldn't really get into. I couldn't really handle it if there was an extended sex scene, because again, it felt like it took me out of the movies. Like, this is supposed to be scary. I know it's realistic, but I'm supposed to be scared. It's a movie. I'm not supposed to think about how real it is. And then gore. Excuse me. Believe it or not, the thing that got me to understand, okay, sex happens, is the 2009, I think it was, Friday the 13th remake. Now, I know this doesn't make any sense because I just mentioned 2012 and 2022. Rewatching that movie a couple of times with that absurd scene in it, and you know what, if you've seen the 2009 Friday the 13th remake, you know what I'm talking about. But that absurd sex scene got me to realize, you know what? Who cares? You can just zone out for those few minutes, whatever. Again, people are going to go, oh, so you don't want to see that? No, I'd rather just participate in it than stare at it on a movie screen, but maybe that's just me. But I did get used to it. I did get over it. I got over myself. I got over my issues. Again, I wasn't being prudish about it. I just felt like that time could be used better elsewhere. It is used really well in some horror movies where people die in the middle of it. That's my favorite. And then we had to start talking about gore. Now, a good example of gore that I have always enjoyed is like Nightmare 1, the bloodbath, Johnny Depp turning into a spray of blood from the bed. And then there's, I mentioned Annabelle Creation. That has just a little bit of gore. It's just enough to shock you and to go, ah, and then you move on from it immediately. And there's good zombie movies that have good gore and stuff like that. It's not that I couldn't handle it. It didn't gross me out. I just felt like, again, why are we spending 5 minutes watching someone get hacked in half and get their guts taken out when the killer could go kill someone else, or we can move on to a different scene? The movie that changed that was Hatchet. If you've never seen Hatchet, it's extremely violent and gross. But when a friend of mine showed me the Hatchet movies, honey, you don't need your shoes for anything. I was very surprised at how much the gore didn't bother. Maybe it was, if you've seen Hatchet, you know it's really over the top. No, it's extremely over the top. And I like to think that's where Terrifier, which we'll get to in a second, got the idea of having over the top gore. Maybe not. Maybe Damien Leone has never even heard of Hatchet. But movies like, and I know, again, someone's going to yell at me. I know Hatchet didn't originate it. The Trauma movies, there's movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. I know they exist. But it was Hatchet that got me to go, well, this is just silly. And it's kind of cool to see what we come up with. And I watched all 3 Hatchet movies at the time. I've seen the 4th one, Victor Crowley. It was just a good friend of mine that really liked horror that wanted me to check out the Hatchet movies because she knew I couldn't really handle gore and wanted me to see, look, it's just a movie. She also showed me, Dead Silence. If you've seen that, you know how scary that movie is. So Hatchet helped me get over the gore. And then, let's just talk about it. Terrifier happened. Honey, please. Sorry, I can't edit this stuff out. I missed Terrifier 1 and 2 when they first came out because, again, I knew what they were. They were low budget and they had lots of gore or whatever. I was like, I may not enjoy that. I was wrong. I can't tell you where the flop happened. While I could handle lots of gore after Hatchet, Brooklyn June, seriously? Have kids. This is what having kids is like. Go ahead, do it. But at some point, I decided I needed to see the Terrifier movies. They were popular. There were Facebook groups about them. David Howard Thornton seemed like a nice guy. Damien Leone had fun interviews. So I checked out the Terrifier movies, and I just fell in love with them. I was like, these are so much fun. Art the Clown is such a fun character. To the point where I went and saw Terrifier 3 in theaters. I'm one of the people that helped it become, what is the highest grossing not rated movie of all time, or unrated movie of all time. And I saw that back to back with Smile 2, which the Smile movies we'll talk about. We'll also talk about those briefly here in a second. But Terrifier made me realize that you can have fun with gore in horror movies. And I think that is where I finally crossed, right? This was like 2 years ago now, I think. But I finally was like, gore can just be fun, right? Just have fun, have a laugh. If you guys haven't seen it yet, there is a Red Band trailer for Eli Roth's Don't You Dare. Ice Cream Man movie. It's not a remake of the old one. It's just a movie called Ice Cream Man. And it's got tons of gore in it. And the first time I watched it, I was like, whoa, that's a lot of gore. And I was so surprised by it. And then I watched the trailer a couple more times. It was like, this is kind of funny. Like, I kind of enjoyed myself. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters or anything, but you get my point. So, what I'm getting to here is that now here we are in the Big 2-6, 2026. And over the last 25 years, I have experienced so much horror, and I think I finally realized that it doesn't matter anymore. I'm just a horror guy. So much so to the point where I'm doing this, where I have a horror show on my YouTube channel. So much so to where a lot of my daughter's toys are horror. I did not get them for her. I didn't say, here's a horror toy. She picked a creature from the Black Lagoon. Blue, Sally, a freaking xenomorph who has a little inside it, but I don't want to mess with it because it's kind of broken. Look, skulls are something that my wife likes as an aesthetic, but it's not like I got with my wife, I know, and very suddenly I was all about skulls. No, I've always loved stuff like that. And I do think horror is at the center of all that. I mentioned Smile. I think Smile's the movie that kind of restored my faith in horror. I don't want to say there was a horror drought, right? But it seemed for a long time, maybe since Insidious 3 and on, up until 2022, maybe 2019. I know 2020 and 2021 weren't great, but it seemed horror was kind of fluctuating, right? But ever since Smile came out, horror's been in a really good place. Horror's in such a good place now to where I have faith in almost every single horror movie that is announced, gets a teaser trailer, even if they are like low budget little nonsense horror movies. I love that stuff. There are really bad horror movies, don't get me wrong. I try to like everything. I do. I try to be like the Jurassic Park series is a really good example. I don't think there's a single bad movie in the Jurassic Park or World movies in like the series. There are people that do. My favorite horror channel, please stop. My favorite horror channel ripped Dominion to shreds, and I really like Dominion. I really like the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Five Nights at Freddy's movies. I think they're really good. They're not terrifying and they're not perfect, but they are really good. And so on and so forth. I could go on for ages and ages and ages. I'm not saying horror is infallible. Like I said a minute ago, there are terrible horror movies. We'll do an episode down the line of my least favorite horror movies, and my God, you won't believe some of them. Yeah, I know. But I guess now I like looking forward to horror movies. Like, you have things like Obsession and Backrooms, which were done by YouTubers, for example. I know, we'll change you in a minute. I'm zoned out again. Oh, you have these, like, Obsession and Backrooms that were made by YouTubers, as was Iron Lung, for example. I haven't seen any of these movies yet. And they're not just YouTubers. Again, don't yell at me in the comments. But they came from YouTube, and they made these crazy movies that are getting really good. Curry Barker, the guy who made Obsession, got the rights or got handed the helm for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Excuse me, which is cool. I can't wait to see what he does with it. So it all started for me to kind of come to an end here. I do feel like I'm babbling now, but to kind of top this video off, it all started for me about 25, 26 years ago when I first got to see The Exorcist. And while that didn't give me a perfect start into horror because it scared me, it was kind of where I first encountered horror. Then you move on to probably 2005, 2006, when I first saw Nightmare 3, and the rest is history. So I've been a horror fan for about 20 years now, and that is why I have started this YouTube series. I sincerely hope you plan on watching future episodes. Again, this will be every 3 weeks, so the next episode will be, I believe, on the 27th. And then in between will be MAW and Retro Wrestling Rewind. So just little 3-week schedule, tri-weekly shows. Thank you so much for watching. Don't touch that. Sorry, I didn't even have to yell at her in the middle of the video, but that's class. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And leave your comments down below. What was your first horror movie, and were you scared of it, or were you immediately into horror? Again, future episodes, we'll do lists, we'll do reviews. Maybe I'll have, like, members of my family or even my wife come on here and talk about horror movies and stuff like that. And I have some fun ideas, too, of, like, maybe turning non-horror things into horror and stuff like that. The next episode of this, to let you know, I will always let you know what the next episode is going to be. We will be talking about queer horror movies. Some of my favorites, some ones that I, stuff like that. Queer horror movies. It's June, Pride Month. We celebrate Pride Month on the channel. You should know that by now, honestly. So about 3 weeks, Saturday of the Dead returns with that episode. But until then, and until next time, this is JT Channel. I am JT, and I will see you in the next one.